Right, good morning, everybody. Here we are again, Sub Junkie interviewing Brendon Prince. Brendon, thank you very, very much for joining us. I'm sure most people know what we're going to talk about. And that is your challenge, which is coming up pretty quickly, actually. The Long Paddle 2021, which is circumnavigating mainland Britain. And you are hoping to start in April. Am I right?
Yeah, 24th of April as a target date. So with a good weather window, yeah, we'll be starting on Saturday, the 24th of April, which is less than 70 days.
Wow, that's yeah. And are you on schedule? You say 70 days, but do you have a plan for those 70 days, and you're on schedule?
That's a great question. I'm on schedule. I've got a list about this long that I'm trying to work through, and every time I think, like this morning, I got up at 7 o'clock just to pound off a load of stuff, and between 10 and 11 o'clock 10 more things came onto that list. So yeah, it's a fantastic thing paddling around the country, but there's a huge amount of paperwork that's involved with it all. So on schedule, I try my best every day, and the 24th will come around. I think I'll rejoice in the day that I could just go and paddle and kind of leave all that behind.
Yeah. There is, I think we learnt this from Jordan, and excuse me mentioning his name, but we do have to mention Jordan, of course, because we're very fond of him. You've met him, you've met him remotely, but I guess he's given you some really good advice as well. But he did say that, he would love to get on the water because it then took everything else away, because there's so much that other people don't realize, the stuff that needs to be done logistically, just even down to what you're going to eat for the day. It's just, there is a huge amount, safety. And it's about the paddling, isn't it? But you have to tick all these boxes.
Yeah, it almost seems like the paddling is the last bit. You've got to get through all these other admin aspects before you even get to the paddling, which is fun and different, and yeah, exciting to do over the next few months before I paddle. But I'll be very much looking forward to getting on the board properly and kind of knowing that this is all done and we can just get on with the mission in hand.
Yeah, get started. Now it's 3,500 kilometers approximately.
Give or take.
Yeah.
Give or take. I mean, I've done the route and submitted it to Guinness, which they're happy with. I'll come back to the Guinness bit perhaps a bit later on, but yeah, it changed because I'm doing beach to beach or harbour to harbour. There is a lot of room for manoeuvre within that target distance, because I'll be changing the beach or changing the harbour depending on the conditions. So yeah, I've probably it takes about 2 days to go through the whole route and plan it.
Gosh.
And I've probably done that about 8 times so far. So I'm trying to get every eventuality nailed, and knowing that if that day you only manage 30k rather than your target 80, then there are options the whole way. So I don't want any surprises. So yeah, it's an interesting one, the whole route. Pretty certain what I'm doing, how I'm doing it, but it's got to be flexible.
It has to be, because you are beholden to the great British weather. So that's why it has to be a bit of a movable feast, doesn't it? I guess with Guinness, and again, we'll come back to that later. But we're going to go straight into the sort of practicalities of the paddle, and we'll come back to who you're supporting a bit later, because that's really important and why you're doing this. But the practicalities, now you are doing it with, obviously you'll have a huge team to help you. This is not just you on your own. You'll have a huge team. First of all, do you have family members, and how are they feeling about you doing this trip?
Yeah, so I'm married to Helen, and we've got 3 children in Devon, South Devon. So Torquay, in fact, you can see the palm trees behind me. The sea is just there. So yeah, very blessed to live where we live. My lovely wife is very accommodating and very understanding of all the different things that I do and the passion behind why I'm doing it. And yeah, I keep asking if she's happy, it's all going as she wants, and she's excited. She's a bit annoyed that she won't have anyone to put the bins out on a weekly basis because she didn't like doing that. And my kids are great.
Are they? Do they paddleboard? Do your family paddleboard?
Yeah, they're all in the water. They're all surf Lifesaving kids. So they're all in the water all the time, love the water. And yeah, they understand it and get it. And yeah, if I can involve them in some way on a board, they'll love to meet me in different places and do just that, especially because it's summer months.
Yeah, of course. I was just going to say that you've timed it well, clearly around the kids' summer holidays, so that they can come hopefully and support you, because you do want that on your paddle, don't you? Not only do you want sponsors, donations, you need volunteers, you also want people to come and paddle with you on the water. Again, referencing Jordan, they were his best days when he had someone, you know, as company to paddle with, maybe learn from. You don't need to do that. You're incredibly experienced paddler. But yeah, it will be lovely to have paddlers physically paddling with you.
Do you know what? It's and this is my favorite bit about this preparation period, is every day meeting lovely people like yourself who are fellow paddlers, but also people who just want to help and support, or actually just paddle out and meet you. So whether it's the Christian surfer groups who want to paddle out as a group just to meet me, say hi and then paddle back, to people who are actually saying, look, can I paddle 2 or 3 days with you? Do you know what? I welcome all of that, and it's exciting. And I know that having known what it's like just to paddle for 12 hours non-stop and actually not see another human being, although there are benefits to that occasionally, there's nothing better than the joy of seeing someone in the distance paddling towards you, knowing they're going to paddle with you, and you're going to chitter-chatter and talk absolute rubbish for whatever amount of hours. But you've got someone there to do that with. And also, some of the best experiences on a board I've seen when I've been on my own, but when you're with somebody else and that tuna jumps out of the water, that's the magic of it, because you can share that story, you can share that experience.
Yeah. And well, I think you'll have a wealth of support. I mean, I will paddle with you if I get the opportunity. There's no doubt that I'll paddle with you. I think you'll have masses of support in that respect, because it's, as you say, and it, you know, it passes the time. It's just a much more enjoyable experience sometimes. Now, land support, you are doing it purely with land support, aren't you? So no boat. So it does mean that you have to, as you said earlier, you have to come in beach to beach, and you have to plan that quite well. Obviously, again, that's weather orientated. You are a very experienced lifesaver, so you will, going in and out of the surf will not be such a big deal for you, depending on the height, the power. But you need land support, don't you? So talk us through what that actually means when we say land support.
So I'll have at least 2 people in a vehicle on the land, ready to meet me at my next point to, you know, get the food on, a bed, and before I go off again. So I'm not having to think about those aspects of it. Those people will be, depending on the tides and where I am, it could be that I'm paddling for 12 hours and they just meet me at the end of the day, or in the morning after a night paddle, or it might be that they're meeting me in 6-hour slots because I'm working with the tides. Again, it all depends on where we are. And yeah, I mean, I've got no issues with landing on beaches with swell, but I do know my history of boards. I've folded 2 boards in big surf previously, and you know, you fold a board, that's game over for that particular board. So I've got to be a bit more careful, because I'm a little bit gung-ho, especially with race boards, because it's such a thrill in big surf on a race board. But race boards are basically long rescue lifeguard boards, fairly similar, but a little bit faster because they're nice and long and thin. So there's that temptation to overcook it a little bit, because I'm used to being in those type of conditions. But you've got to look after that board. So yeah, it's being careful. And the planning of the routes have got to allow for well, if you're going onto that beach and there's a 10-foot swell rolling in for the rest of the day, well, how are you going to attack that? How are you going to plan around it? Which, if I'm honest, is the exciting bit for me. I actually love that. So that was a big part of why I thought I wanted to do it like this rather than the way other people do it. And we're all different in the way that we think and perceive it should be done. There's no right or wrong way, but this bit kind of floats my boat a bit more than the other way.
Yeah, yeah. So when you're coming in on that 10-foot, you know, surf, there's no showing off or anything. There's no funky moves going on because you've got to protect that board.
Well, you just know that the moment you do, you're gonna face plant and fold the board in front of the camera. So yeah, it's all about just being sensible with it, because yeah, they'll never get your best side. You'll always mess up when someone's watching.
Get that 1 in a million shot. Now, talking of kit, what kit are you using at the moment and what you're used to? And are you planning to change that kit for the challenge? And where are you up to in securing kit?
That's the hardest bit. Because if I could have the board and paddle, we look at those two elements first. If I could have those made for me, I'd know exactly what I want. But you can't. It has to be something off the shelf that anyone can buy and isn't modified in any way. So yeah, I'm trying all different types of paddles, and I'm trying all different types of boards. The boards I've got at the moment, I'm predominantly using 2 race boards, which, yeah, it's just too twitchy to do 12 hours on a race board. It's just asking too much of the body. So it's that compromise between speed and stability and comfort, really.
Yeah.
So I mean, I've got the 2 race boards I use at the moment are a Fat Stick 14 by 28 or 26, and then an Ocean Monkeys 14 by 25. So yeah, great boards, but not suitable for what I'm doing. So yeah, doing that. And then literally this last week, all I've been using is my 11-foot rescue board, which is just a big board that, I mean, the swell I was in yesterday was just ridiculous. But on that board, you know, it's all good because that's the type of board it's made for.
Yeah.
But you don't want to be going long distances on it because it's like paddling through treacle on such a wide board.
It's finding that balance, isn't it? So do you think you'll be looking at a sort of 28 or something? Maybe?
Yeah, ideally 14 by 28. And it's just got to be that little bit heavier for being able to cut through that chop rather than ride around on it.
Yeah.
The big nose for doing just that. You know, the ability to cut through rather than suck in that water and just slow you down. And really, having done quite a bit of, you know, constant coastal paddling, it's all about the side chop, really. That's the annoying part, because the local wind is either onshore or offshore, depending on the time of the day, which just creates that chop, and you just need something that can just plow through that chop for hours on end.
Yeah. And you will have presumably, you know, a bag on the front with a certain amount of kit in. Do you know what you're taking and how much it weighs? So when you talk about, you know, having a slightly heavier board.
Yeah, there's not much in there. There's a little bit of food. I do lots of peanut butter parable type protein foods. There's the emergency equipment, as in radios, GPS, the different types of GPS recording for the trip itself, and raise the alarm if needs be. I've just got a watch actually, which now it's just like a phone on my wrist. So that's released the ability to, you know, answer a phone call while you're paddling, which isn't too great, but you can raise an alarm. And that's an incredibly effective system as backup to all the other systems. And a jacket, PDF. You know, the PDF I do take on and off. It's not something that I wear consistently. That's an interesting and raise some questions through people there. The only aspect of that is if you're paddling and you've got a clear sight for the next couple of hours and you know nothing's changing, you can take that off, because it does. The PDF is the biggest restrictive part to the body, and it's the biggest part. Even with some of the, I've got some great PDFs, hugely expensive, hugely comfortable, but they all cut in some way at some point.
Yeah.
And it just gives the body a rest on that. I'll always be wearing a PDF coming in, going out. but there are huge stretches you'll know when you're paddling, where you maybe go from a headland to headland, that you can just give yourself a slight rest with that. And it actually does help to rest the body at the same point. Even if your PDF is only a kilogram or 2, it's still extra weight. And when you're doing 12 hours a day, it's those type of things which make a difference over 30, 60, 90 days. But
so
controversial, I'm sure some people will say not like that. But that's my that's my lifeguard surf lifesaving. You know, as a lifeguard, as a surf lifesaver, I take 20, 30 children out at sea who are competent, they know what they're doing, they don't wear PDFs, all they're wearing is wetsuits, because that's the surf lifesaving lifeguard way of knowing your abilities in the conditions.
Yeah. Well, I was going to bring that up because that is a very fair point. You know, you've made a statement which some people will find controversial, but you've quantified that by, you know, your water history. Let's just talk about that, because that will hopefully allay some people's sort of thoughts of, you know, knee-jerk reaction, not wearing a PDF at certain times, crazy man. But tell us briefly your water history, because it is fairly lengthy and you are very, very experienced. So just tell us about that.
Well, I was brought up in South Wales, and anyone knows South Wales, especially in my teens in the 80s, the water around South Wales is not that great. The quality was dubious at best. So a lot of my paddling early days was kayaking paddling, because there wasn't much else around in those days. Rivers, I actually my parents live right on a river, so paddling in that river from a very, very early age. And swimming, I love my swimming. So as we progress into university, I came down to Marjohn's in Plymouth, part of Exeter University, to do a B.Ed in outdoor education and PE as a PE teacher. And it was all about surf, kayaking, sailing, and just swimming. As I said, I love my open water swimming, and have been open water swimming since the 80s. And I think that's my biggest strength of understanding the water. If you swim from a headland to a headland, it's the best way to understand the water, because everything influences you. When you're on a kayak or you're on a SUP, you've got certain more things in your favor. So understanding the water from being in it as a swimmer really does help me to understand the way our water moves, the flow, the tides, and all those parts. So yeah, I became a lifeguard, trainer, assessor, lifeguard. I'm chairman of the local, and set up the local surf lifesaving club, because as a PE teacher, an outdoor education teacher, especially through the summer months when I was on the water almost every day with kids, teaching them sailing, kayaking, surf skis, whatever it might be, we were rescuing people. We were using the boat to just pull people in, because Torbay, you know, it's safe for lots of aspects, but unfortunately you get an offshore wind and you've got inflatables and people being blown all over the place. So we were rescuing so many people that I thought we've got to do something about this. So I set up Surf Lifesaving Club just to train as many children locally to understand those basics. So that's been really successful. I'm still chairman of the club in Torbay. And yeah, as a lifeguard, you see everything that you could possibly imagine, the good, the bad, and the very ugly of people on the water. And that through then using a SUP back in 2008, 2009, to actually stand up nice and high and just see what was going on the beach. And it wasn't a SUP, it was a really wide rescue board in those days. And then being able to commission Circle One to build us a rescue SUP and use that, and my passion of kind of standing up on a board really came in. And yeah, as a slightly creaking old rugby player, the ability to stand up and surf rather than be in the water and surf just gave another benefit, really. And then got into a bit of racing, but really loved the ability just to say, well, today I'm paddling to Portland, or today I'm paddling to Dartmouth, and just that ability and freedom on the water.
Yeah.
With a greater understanding, I think is phenomenal. So yeah, started doing bigger challenges. I did a challenge last year in preparation because I knew I wanted to do this year, which was a paddle from Sennen to Torquay. I tried to do it in under 4 days and did, on a rescue board. So that was, like paddling through treacle. But then obviously when I came in, I suddenly realized that this guy called Jordan was doing what I was planning to do. And I couldn't believe just the guts of the guy to be doing it and starting it when he was starting it. So I followed Jordan very closely. Since I've spoke to him a few times, I've got a huge amount of respect for the man. And yeah, I just couldn't believe his guts to do what he was doing. But I totally get what he was doing it when he was doing it, and the mission behind it. It was just gutted for him that it's taken away from him rather than him not being able to do it.
Yeah.
So yeah, that, if anything, probably motivated me as a paddler. Him not being a paddler, it's me as a paddler trying to get the spirit that he had and determination that he showed for my paddle this year. I hadn't planned to be the first person to do it, but it potentially might mean that it is, which in my own way fuels me a little bit more, just because it's a challenge, and I'm a competitive person, and I do live that challenge. So yeah, that's cool.
Well, that's great. I mean, yes, I mean, he was not a paddler. He certainly is a paddler now, and I think everybody was gutted, that he was forced to stop through no fault of his own, and I have no doubt that he would have made it, because he'd done, I think, the most difficult part at that time. So I can imagine your sort of, the fire in your belly is big and strong for that. So let's talk about the charities that you are supporting, and then we'll get to your own charity, Above Water. But you are supporting sort of water-based charities, men's mental health. So how did you choose those charities particularly?
Well, I did a good thing, but a bad thing at the same time. I actually asked social media who I should support, which seemed like a good idea at the time. As you can imagine, I was totally swamped on every channel by amazing charities who are struggling at this time because they've had it so bad this last year. And every single one of them was a fantastic argument to support that charity. So I had to actually sort of step back and say, well, the missions of why I'm trying to do this challenge, I have to stay true to those. Mm-hmm. And although there are many, for example, let's just use a cancer charity as an example, so deserving, would be so amazing to support, but that isn't my particular mission. I can't cover everything. That isn't the particular mission of what I'm trying to do with the long paddle. So I brought it all back, and there are the obvious ones of supporting the RNI and Surf Lifesaving GB for all the fantastic work that they do around this country and other countries to inspire water safety and drowning prevention. So they were two definites as my water-based charities. And then, why I get such comfort, such ability to clear my mind from going on a paddle. So the men's health thing is a big one. Men my age, I'm at the latter part of my 40s, and there are lots of mates who are struggling, and we all need something to clear their mind and give us focus and just take us away from our daily whatevers. And paddling's a really good example of that. So I wanted to support some sort of men's health charities, and that's where Andy's Man's Club comes in, because they hold meetings all around the country for any man just to come along to a coffee shop, obviously prior to COVID, and just sit and chat. And likewise, Christian surfers, they do the same, just paddle outs, have a chat with anybody about anything, just to clear your mind and sort of sort yourself out and give you a chance to then attack the next day. So they were two really obvious ones to support from that aspect. And then finally, we paddle. Every day I paddle, and every day I bring back a lot of rubbish that I collect. Just extraordinary, some of the things I find that are floating around in the water. So you had to support something that is doing such good about helping us understand, but also do in sorting out our water quality and that surface against sewage. So that's again another obvious one to support. And being a founder of a charity myself, I understand that it would be great to just focus on one charity and give all the money we raise just to one charity. But as I say, being a founder of a charity, I understand that actually little and often money can be better than, you know, sudden load of it. So, and that sounds a bit strange, but it just helps with the planning and understanding of how a charity works. And so I could see that actually, if I supported six or so charities, that would help and create a bigger support across that. So, and then indeed, I'm supporting the charity that I founded myself. But yeah, and the other thing is, sorry to go on about this, but this is my passion with it. Yes, all those charities, fantastic, really helpful, but half of the money that I raise will actually be to develop an online, interactive, gamified platform for children to be able to play. Before COVID, I was speaking to about 50,000 children a year, with going into schools, teaching water safety, drinking prevention, and about 4,500 practically in the water. We're never going to get anywhere near the 9 million children we've got in this country. So there has to be a way, and there is nothing. If you think about all the games children play, all the apps that are there, there is nothing for water safety. And there's many reasons why that is, but we can turn water safety into a fun thing to do. And I've tested it with my own kids and my friends' kids around us. So I've actually got, working with companies to produce this gamified version of water safety. That, let's say that you are visiting my local beach, Tor Abbey Sands. You can actually go onto Tor Abbey Sands and play the game related to Tor Abbey Sands about the tides and the winds and the specific to that area. And that just, you know, it could be a fantastic legacy from the long paddle to be able to produce something like this that could have such an impact, and just isn't there on a world scale. Just isn't there by anybody really. So just to help. And that could be a real legacy. So, well, that's my thing. Sorry for going on for so long.
That's fine. This is what we need to hear. We need to hear this, because if we don't hear about this, you know, that might really resonate with someone, and they might go, that really turns me on. I'm going to definitely donate because I've heard that. I mean, that is a wonderful, wonderful idea. And let's talk about Above Water. I think that's where I first noticed you. There was a piece in Stand Up Paddle Bag about you and Above Water and the charity and why you created it. Now it is teaching water safety and drowning prevention, and you did a week last year, I think, didn't you, where you did a whole week on safety particularly. We had a really good chat on the phone last week, and something really resonated with me. I've got 2 grown-up children, and we talked about swimming lessons in school, and all it was about was their 5-meter badge, their 25-meter badge, their 100-meter badge. And it was all, as a parent, you wanted was for them to come home and say, I've done this. But never, and I will admit this, never at any stage did I ever think about water safety with them. All I wanted was, I thought, if they can swim, they will be safe. But you talked about them learning. The first thing that they should learn is self-rescue. I think that's the conversation we had. So talk to me about Above Water.
So, well, I set up Above Water as a small charity that could be reactionary to events that are happening. This was obviously a few years prior to COVID, because I had experience where I, as a lifeguard, lost souls in front of families, and just understanding how catastrophic a drowning situation is, because often you're in the most wonderful place, having the most wonderful time, and suddenly it all changes. That's why we're swimming, because we're having a great time. That's why we're in the water. So that's why I set the charity up, because I wanted it to be more smaller, to be reactionary. So if somebody tragically drowns in an area for a reason, we can go into that area and teach the children in that area not to why that one child died. We can react to the situation. Unfortunately, the big charities who do great work have the ability to be that reactionary. And that really worked well for SUP Safety Week that we organised in June of last year. Just because I had suddenly seen with my paddling how many people were going out paddling, and I was actually towing them back. So I sat on a beach for 3 days and did a survey of over 100 paddlers, and was shocked by the results. So I thought, well, as a charity, we've got to do something about this. So we organised SUP Safety Week, got lots of brands and manufacturers and companies involved, and just put lots of messages out there. And it got over 1 million interactions online, which, you know, hopefully that did some good in just helping people to understand that they either need a lesson or the right kit or whatever they need before they just jump on their board and start paddling. So yeah, the charity took a very different turn with COVID, from being hands-on into schools to suddenly realize we couldn't do that. So it's all about now online learning. COVID did one good thing for schools, and that is it made all schools update their technology and get their technology working. So now I can do an assembly. I've done many assemblies to 500 children in Norfolk, sat where I am now. And so my interaction, has gone from 50,000 a year to about 3 weeks ago, I did 50,000 in a week. So,
wow.
It's completely different. And this is the best way of doing it. It's a modern way of doing it. And that's where this interactive gamified water safety app that hopefully we can produce from a legacy of the long paddle will really help in that, because I can see how it will work, because that's my day-to-day, that's what I do. So that's the charity, Above Water. And I don't ever want it to be a big charity. It needs to be something that is just reactionary and can help. And it's all about education. It's going into schools. It's teaching teachers how to teach water safety. And going back to what you were saying, we all presume as parents that our children are taught everything they need to be taught about water and water safety at school. It is in the national curriculum at primary level. But no one has ever taught the teachers to teach it. So in teacher training colleges, you are not taught how to teach cold water shock, RIPS, self-rescue. So suddenly you've got teachers who are beyond swamped with the amount of work that they're trying to do, thinking, oh, do I learn how to teach that and then try and teach it? I haven't got time for it. I'll try and let my swim teacher perhaps do it. Swim teachers are under pressure to get their children swimming because they might only have 45 minutes, let alone, a course of 12 weeks. So suddenly we're pressured, and the desire to just get children being able to swim 25 meters does not mean that the child can rescue themselves if they get into trouble. So it's understanding, and we work with Swim England and thousands of swim teachers about turning on its head and getting children, if they just fall in, over 100 people a year in this country die when they have no intention of going into the water because they just fall in for some reason. They go for a run, they slip, whatever. And it's getting children to understand, well, what do you do? You've fallen in. Is it all about swimming? No, it's not. And it's teaching them to lie on their back, to work out, to problem solve in their head, how they're going to get themselves or somebody else out of the water. And it's that aspect that is key to the education that we're trying to provide. Yeah.
It just sounds wonderful. It just sounds, when you're talking or when you were telling me last week, I just thought this is such practical advice. And there are some amazing silver linings that have come from COVID, and one of them hopefully is this online learning, and hopefully that will stay. If it's a better way to do it, then let's hope it will stay, and let's hope you get your wonderful little app up and running, because that just sounds wonderful. So where can people follow Above Water? Is it just abovewater.com or?
Yeah, so just because a very famous actress released a song called Above Water, which ruined a little bit of our tags. So for social media, it's Above Any Water. Even though the charity is called Above Water, it's at above any water, just because we were being mixed up with this very famous singer's song. So yeah, that's the social media channels, www.abovewater.org for our website. Yeah, appreciate any support through that.
We'll put all the, when we do the video and put it out, we'll put all the links to all your charities and everything that we can, always. Couple of questions. Now, my husband and I were talking about the Guinness World Record, and you have to do it on the same board. Is that my understanding? You have to keep the same board. So what happens if you fold your board on the beach as you're coming in on your 10-foot swell? Can you have another one?
Yes, you're allowed. If you damage the equipment or it's not repairable, you're allowed to get another one, but it has to be the same board again. You can't change, because I mean that would be quite helpful if you could go with 3 different types of boards. That would be really helpful. But yeah, no, it has to be one board, one paddle, but you can change it if things are broken.
Yeah, brilliant. Good. And you are, another question I have to ask you. Are Wales going to win the Six Nations, Brendon?
Well, yeah, I'm a Welshman. I love my rugby. And let's face it, any Welshman would have said that they probably would have been at the bottom of the table with Italy this year. But it just so happens that we've scraped through, beating 2, of the better sides in the Six Nations. So who knows? We face England in 2 weeks' time. England are a far better side at the minute. But you never know, do you? You never know. It's in Cardiff, so we'll wait and see. That could be a nice cherry before I leave. Wales winning the Six Nations, but France and England are better sides at the minute, so we'll see.
Fingers crossed. Fingers crossed. I don't mind who wins. It's not, obviously England, but I don't mind. Wales would be my second choice, I think.
That's very good of you. Not many English people would say that.
Oh, I love Wales. I'd move there in a heartbeat. So I've got very, very good friends there, and I feel it's sort of part of my home as well. So I do love it.
That's very kind.
Yeah. So we are going to wrap it up shortly. So everybody will be wishing you amazing good luck. You might get the odd naysayer. There'll always be 1 or 2 of those, but you are doing what you're doing, and you're doing it for an incredibly amazing set of charities for which we applaud you. It's incredible. We'll be following you all the way, and if there's anything that we can do, obviously give us a shout and we'll try and do our best. I think a lot of it is about sharing, isn't it? Getting the word out. So if people watch this video, please share it. Please get the word out. You need help. You need sponsors, volunteers, donations, and all that information can be found on your website, can't it?
Yeah, so it's all on the longpaddle2021.com. And I would have thought most of the people, if not all the people watching this, are the converted. They're watermen and women. They kind of know what they're doing. It's about them sharing it to their friendship bases, which don't include those water people. That it's all about. If I can interact with people that I wouldn't normally interact with, let's say it's in North Wales or Liverpool or Scotland or Norfolk, and they're all sharing it, suddenly that person who wouldn't normally see a water safety message is seeing that, and that could make the difference between making the wrong decision or the right decision on their staycation this year, wherever that might be near the water. So that's exactly what it's about. It's sharing that water safety message is really important. And as a result, I think people understand what I'm doing, and hopefully all the different aspects of sponsorship and all that will just slot into place. I have every faith that it will do just that. Well,
you've got just under 70 days to get all that wrapped up and, into its little box, and then you can go off and have the fun. I think I'll use that word, fun. It will be fun. Lots of it will be very challenging, but it will be fun as well. And it'll be great to see you on your way. So yeah, the message to everybody really for this whole video and this whole trip is water safety, isn't it? And drowning prevention at the end of the day.
Yeah, I mean, you can't do something like this. And I think this is probably why it hasn't been achieved, not in counting Jordan, but those people who have tried it before. There's just so many elements to paddling around this fantastic country. The diversity in the paddle, the diversity of the water conditions, And of course our great British weather, because we're an island. So it's factoring all those elements and using it to your advantage and making the most of it. And let's face it, my perfect day is a paddle. So I've got lots of perfect days ahead of me. It's just a shame that, you know, my family or friends can't necessarily paddle with me at different times, but I think it's worth that commitment's worth it for the end goal. So I'm really excited. Thank you.
Yes, that's good. You're excited. How long do you think it might take you? Have you got a sort of little ballpark figure in your mind?
Yeah. So, I mean, talking about the Guinness aspect of it, I have applied to Guinness and it's all through and been accepted by Guinness. I am in two minds whether to use Guinness as a recognised result, just because of the money it costs to give Guinness for such a thing. And I'd rather potentially give that money to a charity than just so I get a certificate at the end of it. I'll know if I do it or not. So, you know, that's something to be thought about. And yeah, so that's an interesting one, a topic for another day. But no, super excited. And you said a very good point then that I was going to answer, but I've forgotten what it was. Yeah, just excited, looking forward to it. Oh, days, sorry.
Yeah, how long?
Yeah, there are some records, unofficial, official records from kayakers that have done it in 72 days. I know I can paddle it quicker than that, but it's our British weather that makes or breaks such a challenge.
Yeah.
And you only need 2 or 3 weeks of bad weather where you're only paddling short distances, and that changes the dynamics. So on paper, with knowing how I can paddle in certain places, I want to beat 72 days, which is a hugely bold statement. I'm giving myself only 90 days anyway, so it has to be finished in that time. But it is hugely dependent on the weather. I've paddled all week this last week, which has been horrendous weather, because you use the weather to your advantage. And even if it's bad, there's always a way of using it to your advantage. Yeah. The only issue with doing it for the long paddle is I have to keep going in that same direction, which is the issue. So there will be days where I'm sat out. There will be days that I'm only getting a certain amount achieved. But as any person on the water will say, with a fair wind and calm seas, anything can be achieved. So yeah, here's hoping.
Well, Brendon, it's been really lovely to talk to you. Thank you for your time, and we obviously wish you the very, very best of British luck. You'll be supported all the way for sure, and we really hope that you raise a lot of money for the charities, but more importantly, awareness of what you're really passionate about, which is saving lives, isn't it? And stopping, the drowning prevention, basically. So it's been a real pleasure to talk to you. I like your sweatshirt, Paddle Logger. They are supporting you, aren't they? I think in some way on this trip.
Yeah, they've started making contact, and yeah, we're at that sort of early stage. Everyone is just sort of starting to realise what I'm doing and starting to make contact, which is exciting. Good. So really,
well, that's what you need, don't you? You need a really big team of people behind you, and we hope you find that success in finding those good people as well. So, Brendon, thank you very much.
It's been a joy. Thank you for your time, and just people listening. I'm blessed to even be thinking about doing such a challenge. So I just thank you all just for being interested and sharing the water safety message, and you, especially Sarah, for reaching out and making contact and giving up your time. So
absolute pleasure. Absolute pleasure. And we'll be following you all the way another few months of every day checking and being totally immersed in your journey. So yeah, jolly good luck.
That's very kind. That's very kind.
Thanks very much, Brendon. Take care.